Welcome to you all. Bienvenue à tous. My name is Binish Saxena, and I'm your host. This is our 5th public meeting, and this meeting is being recorded. Let me tell you how this project started. The Center for Consciousness Development. I have been interested in spirituality as well as humanity for a long time. I have a foundation. It has 2 objectives. First objective is to help the needy, people who are in financial problem. And other objective is to answer unanswered questions. What are these unanswered questions? Is soul there? Is there life after life? Is God there? And these are my 2 websites. I will show you the link. bsffoundation.ca, help the needy. bsffoundation.org, help the explore the unanswered questions. I have been teaching yoga for a long time. Before it used to be in the Zoom, and now it is before it used to be in the gym, and now it is on the Zoom. If somebody wants to join in, please send me the email. I will send you the link. Now, my background, I'm engineering. I am engineer. So the logic plays a great part in my thinking. When I look around at various religious and spiritual practices, like participating in religious rituals, or chanting, praying, yoga, meditation, and even walking in the nature, I ask myself question, what people are trying to do? What is their objective? Also, then there are many unanswered questions, like just think, where does the space end? Take a minute and just try to close your eyes and think, where does this universe or space end? There is no answer to that, right? Same thing, on the other hand, there are many other questions. Some people have psychic abilities like mediumship, telepathy, or moving objects, astral traveling, and most of the people don't. Some people have near-death experiences, most of the people don't. Some people are filthy rich, other people on the street, nothing to eat. So when we look at all these questions, it seems that there is a bigger truth or universal consciousness, and we are being shown only a small part. We don't know what is the whole story. Take an analogy. If you went to a picture to see a movie and only few scenes were shown, you will keep on wondering what is happening here, what is going on. So this is what I find about the universe. Now, when I contemplate, I have come to the conclusion the objective has to be raise the consciousness. There is greater reality than we can see. You can call it universal truth. You can call God or universal consciousness. There is something bigger going on which we don't understand. So this is why we have decided to establish this Center for Consciousness, because I think if we can tap in this universal consciousness, we can develop intuition, we can heal ourselves, we can get answers to our questions. And the purpose of this Center of Consciousness Development is assisting people of all faiths, beliefs, backgrounds, and from the entire spectrum of diversity to improve understanding of the universe and our own reality, increase awareness of internal and external, and develop raised consciousness. So that was some of the background. Now, without delay, let me introduce our speaker, Dr. Atwater. The subject of the near-death experience is very close to my heart, since it clearly points out the survival and existence of the consciousness. Please mute yourself. So there is even a manifesto on what happens after life on my website. We are very fortunate. Please mute yourself.
Madam Jahana Rakar, can you please mute yourself?
We are very fortunate to have Dr. Atwater, who is expert in this field. She had 3 near-death experiences and has written 14 books on the related topics. Dr. Atwater will talk on how the near-death experience is the only phenomena that dramatically tackles the subject of after death in a way that can be investigated in a scientific manner. Near-death experience stories and narratives and of those children challenge everything we think and believe. The concept of the heaven and hell, spirit realms, psychic and intuitive notions, and concept of the reincarnation and consciousness, they are all subject to redefinition. What seems to be obvious may not be. So Madam Atwater will talk how near-death experiences help us in understanding the survival of consciousness and subsequently raising consciousness. So Madam Atwater, all yours.
Well, thank you very much. Glad to be, I'm very glad to be there. Yes, this is a privilege and an honor for me. The subject here is really one of consciousness. And in dealing with that, in looking at consciousness, I want to stretch you a little bit before we get into near-death experiences. I want to stretch you back to about 1969, when Cleve Baxter, a polygraph expert, was starting to apply his research equipment to plants. There were plants in his office, plants all over, all kinds of plants. So he would attach electrodes or various things to these plants, and he found out that these plants can respond to him, that they could think, that they had consciousness. And he had this one experiment where he had a number of men come in and attack the plants and actually destroy one. And then the men left. The police were called in and then taken to court. And all of these men were taken to court. And through the plants then were able to identify which man did the damage. The plants then, through their consciousness, were able to identify the exact man. Cleve Baxter was able to show that all living things have consciousness. He was able to show that through polygraph equipment. So this was very, very linear in that sense. He was able to show and prove it. Now we have just recently, the incredible book, Finding the Mother Tree. And we know now that there is a mother tree in any glen, in any forest, anywhere. There is a mother tree who watches out and takes care of the other trees and talks to them and they talk back. When we're looking at the near-death experience, experiencers themselves begin to plug into this network, begin to plug in to this reality, begin to realize that everything is consciousness. When they come back from a near-death experience, there's this incredible phenomenon that appears to them, many of them, that everything is alive. And that's one of the things they know and wake up to and come to realize, wow, you know, life isn't like what we thought it was. I'm not like what I thought I was. This can be very confusing to many of them. This can be very frightening to many of them. But it's this realization, this knowing that, wow, oh, I didn't realize this world is as big and as multilingual and absolutely wide awake that I, you know, I could never conceive of this. So let me give you a little background here on the near-death experience. Let's look at the near-death experience let's take a good look at the near-death experience here and define it and really look at it. The near-death experience is an intense awareness, sense, or experience of otherworldliness, whether pleasant or unpleasant, that happens to people who are at the edge of death. It is of such magnitude that most experiencers are deeply affected, getting to the point of making significant changes in their lives afterward. What we find is in people who have near-death experiences, consistently, their out-of-body experiences, clear, enhanced consciousness, self-identity with emotions, cognition, thought, perception, full use of faculties, intact memories, all when the brain is not working, the heart is not working, the body is not working. When the person is dead, we now know They can have out-of-body experiences, clear enhanced consciousness, self-identity with emotions, thought, perception, full use of faculties, intact memories. All of this is going on when the body is not functioning. This has now been proved by Pim van Lommel, Dr. Pim van Lommel in Holland. It's written up in Lancet Medical Journal. I'm in that journal too, some of my work. We know for sure that these people, whether they're close to death or clinically dead or in the morgue, these people are elsewhere. They're not where their body is. They are elsewhere.
Elsewhere.
Let's take a good look at what that means. By the way, tunnel experiences are quite rare. Not that many people have the tunnel experience. So let's take the blind can see, even people born blind.
Goodness, crazy old lady.
And know
She's an expert
all
on
about colors,
experiences.
all about
Wild.
walls and everything.
Wow.
They are able to see as if they are wide awake. How can that be possible? A person that's born blind, how can they even know what color is? Objects are, but they can. It's just. Let me give you a couple of case studies where you get a better idea of the entire scope of near-death experiences and why they puzzle us. I'm talking now about a woman in her early 30s. She's traveling in agricultural country. So she's driving down roads in fields of, I think it's corn, but I'm not sure. And she comes to an intersection and a truck coming the other way smashes right into her. Of course, the police and medical crews are called. They rush her to the hospital, dead. They found her dead, so they rush her to the hospital. They were able to bring her back to life. So they're in the operating area, and she starts jumping up and down and yelling and screaming, "I saw my dad! I saw my dad! I saw my dad! I talked to my dad! My dad was there and I talked to my dad."
Madam Atwater, unmute yourself.
We can't hear her anymore.
How did I get muted? Well,
Now it's okay. It's okay, go ahead.
I could go ahead now. Thank you.
Yeah.
So she's very excited about her dad and talking to her dad, and that upset the hospital, the crew, the doctors and nurses, because they can't work on her. She's jumping up and down as near as she can, and talking to her father. So one of the doctors left the surgical rooms, went to the area where the family was gathering, and said, you know, what's going on here with the father? She's talking about her father being dead, and he's talking to her. What's going on here? And people in the reception room were saying, oh, that's just, you know, nothing to that. Several had talked to the father that morning. There's nothing wrong with the father. He's in good health. So the doctor went back, told the patient this, and she started screaming and jumping up and down even more. They could not do their job on the operating table. So the doctor in charge went, you know, right away back to the family and said, get a hold of that doctor on the phone. I want to hear him on the phone. I want to take that phone to the woman and stop her, because we can't operate. So the family, they did everything they could to get a hold of the father. Took some time, and they finally discovered that the father had died exactly as the daughter had described 5 minutes before she did. How could she have known? I want to talk about another case. This is a man in Portland, Oregon. It's the dark of the, it's around midnight. And he's driving out, it's in October, late October. He's driving outside of Portland, Oregon. He's driving in an area that there are no homes. And he had to take this one particular corner. And there had been a drizzle. And he was not aware of, nor did he see black ice. There is black ice now on the roadway. He did not see it. He was not prepared for the black ice. He took the corner much too fast. He smashed into a very large tree. His words now, he's up on top of the tree looking down. And he's seeing himself. He has, his right arm is gone. He's bleeding profusely. His job, his idea, his thought is, I've got to save my body. How am I going to save my body? And he's looking around, and he's not seeing homes, but way up on a ridge, he did see a home, upper floor, and there was one light on. So he decided to go to that home and ask for help. How he got there, I don't know. He doesn't know. But he got to that home, second floor now, mind you. He's looking inside the window, and inside the window is a man. And he did everything he could. He's jumping up and down and yelling and screaming, call the police, there's been an accident. He says it over and over again. Call the police, there's been an accident. The guy in the room notices this fog jumping up and down. And he says, fog doesn't jump up and down. And he heard this sound in his voice, a man's voice saying, call the police, there's been an accident. So right away, he went to the phone, called the police, and related there's been an accident. And he rushed downstairs, grabbed a flashlight, and started searching for the accident. Where is the accident? He didn't know where it was, but he started searching with his flashlight, finally found it, and was there to flag down the police and the medical community. They rushed the guy to the hospital. The force of the impact of the accident, he could no longer see. He's now blind. And they brought in as many people as they could to take a look at this and to talk to him. They did everything they could, and the man is just repeats over and over and over again what happened, and that he did everything he could to get the fellow in the home to come to the place. Well, 3 months later, his sight comes back. He's still in the hospital. So he asked the nurse for pencil and paper, or pen and paper. The man had been an artist. He was right-handed. His right arm now is gone. They were not able to reattach it. So with his left arm, he takes the pen and he draws a picture of the accident. They called in the man who found him. They called in the police who were there, and they looked at the picture. It was if a photograph of the accident scene. It was so detailed and accurate. How could that have happened? Let me give you one more case. This is of Margaret in North Carolina. Margaret was a school teacher, first grade. She raised horses. She was divorced. She had one daughter. She was very much into gardening, raising horses, and teaching kids. She developed phlebitis in her legs and had to be rushed to the hospital, especially one leg in particular. She had to be rushed into surgery. She died during surgery. In her near-death experience, she saw herself in a very green, wonderful place. There was lawns and there were trees and bushes, and there was a river right in front of her. And there was even more greenery and more beautiful scenery beyond the river. And she walked up to the river, and there was a voice speaking on the other side. And that voice said, "You are now to be a healer. Go back and be a healer, even in darkest Africa." This is a little lady from North Carolina. So she went back in her body, and right away in the room where she was being kept, there was another fellow, a younger fellow. He was screaming and yelling. He was in so much pain. And Margaret said to this man, "I will help you." So she goes over to him. How she went over to him, she doesn't know, but she did. And she passed her hands over his head and his heart. And he quit screaming and he went to sleep. And at the end of the room where she was kept was another room all blackened with black curtains. She had no idea who was in that room, but suddenly she knew she had to go. She had to go there. Margaret's words, not mine. She went through the wall, and she sat down on the hospital bed because she found there a young boy. Oh, he's about 6 or 7. And she sat down on his bed and she started talking to him. He was a black boy. He was a white boy turned black. So we're talking here about a serious burn victim. There was no way he could live. So she sat on his bed and just, talked to him and took his hand and described death. And there was nothing to it. And it would be okay. And it was just fine. And his parents would be okay too. That it would be okay to leave. And he didn't have to worry about his parents. And then she went back to her body. And all was well with her. They released her eventually. She went home. She's now in a wheelchair. She can no longer walk for a while. She's in a wheelchair. Remember, she raises horses. So she was at a horse meet, a performance. Her daughter was with the horses and performing, and won first prize. So the speaker gave the daughter's name, the mother's name, and spoke about the first prize that the daughter had won with the horse. And pretty soon you heard this scuffle, and two people trying to get to Margaret. And they finally did. A husband and wife. And they were the parents of the young boy. And they'd been trying to find her because their son had given them her name. And they finally found her. And they said, "Thank you so much." He was able to die peacefully. And we're okay now. We know where he is thanks to you. Thank you. Thank you. How could have any of this happened? Her even knowing about that room and the white boy burned black inside. And she told that boy her name. And the parents being able to find, finally, the woman who enabled their son to die in peace and to help them. These are the kind of stories we hear often. Hundreds of thousands of stories. In my research base, nearly 5,000 adults and children who have near-death experiences. children can have a near-death experience even in the womb. Being born at any age. My book, The Forever Angels, talks about those who have near-death experiences between birth and the age of 5. Be prepared for this. 397 people were in my research base. This is a major study. 397 people. 1/3 could remember life in the womb. Most of them could remember birth. Two of them could remember conception. They were there. They were there watching their parents in conception, having, intercourse, and conception occurred. One of them, when she was old enough, drew a picture of it and showed her parents. And they were so embarrassed. But it was accurate. It was totally accurate. The position that they were in. We need to re-identify what a human being is. We need to re-identify what consciousness is. We need to re-identify what life is. Because it's not what we think. It's not what we see in the mirror. It's not this sweater I'm wearing. It's not your glasses. It's not your head. It's not your feet. It's so large and so big and so incredible. We cannot measure consciousness. We can't even identify it. We come back near-death experiencers, most of them, not all, most of them, coming back realizing that everything is mind, everything has consciousness, everything is awake and aware. Not just you and me and our kids and our boss and the neighbors down the hall or down the street. It's so massive what consciousness is. We can't begin to identify it. We can get into these yoga positions. We can get into meditation. We can practice greening, that is to say, walking barefooted in a forest or walking through a forest. We only get a whiff. We only get a whiff of what consciousness is. The idea that life is bigger than life. That what we are, what this world is, what this computer is in front of me, this room is in front of me, encapsulating me is just alive. Everything is alive. Consciousness, mind. There are all kinds of incidents that are occurring now that challenge us to what consciousness is. And of course, a big one is the near-death experience, because we now have hard facts that will hold up in all kinds of scientific investigation. And we're beginning to see this is holding up. Like in Pim van Lommel's work. The man is there with a heart attack. They're rushing him through. And the nurse took off his glasses. He saw where she put them in a nearby cabinet. He saw her put them there in a special drawer. But he was completely, totally unconscious. Later on, he told the nurse, she went to the drawer and there were the glasses. We look at this. Oxygen deprivation? Nuts! No way! But that, to me, the biggie about near-death experiences is the after effects. Most people, again, not all, but most people come back changed. Lower blood pressure is normal. Less aging, less cortisol in the body, have slower response to stress, lowers blood pressure. Light sensitivity. You have to be careful of sports and being outside, because you have to be careful of light. Sound sensitivity. Oh, the big one that we often see is electrical sensitivity. Yes. Absolutely, me too. Electrical sensitivity. I brought down many a grid. I have to be very careful where I am with electrical sensitivity. Where I am now it's been protected and prepared for me to be here. Because the average computer, I'll blow it up or, have problems with it. Yes, it does make physical changes in your body. You don't just come back nicer. You don't just come back, you love people and you want to heal and help and do all you can to make life better for people. No, that's not. Yes, many near-death experiencers become ministers afterward. Yes, many of them enter the medical career in one way or another. Yes, many of them become psychics. Yes, many of them become healers of some kind. Let's face it, if you weren't psychic before, you become a psychic after. If you were psychic before, you become very psychic after. That intuitive psychic ability increases Yes. But we have the physiological changes. Changes to brain structure. Changes to the way you can process mind. Changes to the way you are able to use your body and what you do. What you can eat. What you're around. With children, we have to be very careful. The average child, if they're taken to a doctor, they're medicated according to weight and age. What if that child had a near-death experience? Most near-death experiencers can no longer handle the average medication that they're given. You become very sensitive to pharmaceuticals. Most of it turn to some other way of handling that. So you have to be very careful with children. When I say it's making differences to the body, very often the brain changes as well. Your consciousness changes as well. The way you wear your body, the body itself changes. You can't go back, although many try, eating and drinking the way you used to. No, you're much more sensitive now. It just doesn't work. But it changes the brain. It changes brain structure and function. Not everybody has that big flip, but a lot do. In my research base, 70-some%, I think it was pretty close to 76, 79%, come back with a very different mind. And it changes them in such a way that they can no longer function as they once did. I was one of those. The mind works different. The brain changes. Let me give you some figures from just the children. Birth, let's say birth to 15 years. That's a broad span. When they're old enough to take the standard IQ tests, 48% were obtaining 150 to 160 on their scores. Now the average teacher will say, well, 130 to 135, genius. We're talking thousands of kids here. From birth to 15 years, we're coming back 150 to 160. Let me be more specific. 3 to 5 years. That's 397 people. 3 to 5 years, 81% were scoring between 150 to 160. The younger the child, the bigger the jump. Birth to 15 months. 96% and even higher. Let's be even more specific. That birth to 15 months, if they had a dark light experience instead of a white or bright light experience, 180 and above. Children talk about these lights. No, adults sometimes do, but children do. They're very specific. They say that this really bright, strong, immense light is more of a radiance. It just doesn't really have a color. And there's this black or dark light, often has purple tinges in it. And it's so healing. And it's just so wonderful to be with and in. And then there's this bright or white light. Sometimes that's gold or silver in it. And that's a wonderful light too. You can talk to that light. It knows all about you. You can't lie. I love the way kids describe this. And they say, well, that bright or white light, that's father light. And that dark or black light, that's mother light. But that raw, piercing, incredible light, that's God's light. And the mother light and the father light come from God's light. How refreshing to take a look at this. If you get the big book of near-death experiences, it's like an encyclopedia of the entire field, globally. And you get a lot of this information in there. It comes from the International Association of Near-Death Studies, IANDS, IANDS, IANDS. It accounts for a lot of these things, certainly about the lights that children see. And it doesn't make any difference your race, who you are, where you are. These kinds of things occur. How do you define that? How do you really take a good look at all of that and handle it in any rational way? You can't. You have to sit down with yourself and say, there's more to life than I thought there was. There's more to me than I thought there was.
Atwater, can we take some questions?
At this point?
Yeah.
Sure.
We'll take some questions before the break. Okay, please raise your hands. The people who have questions. Raise your hands.
There's
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Go ahead. Hello? Unmute
Hi.
yourself.
He did.
Unmute.
He did.
There are two hands. That's why this confusion. You name one.
Okay. First question.
What's your question?
Trying to see the hands.
Bubblies, you could
Yeah.
go.
Miss Bubblies. Go ahead.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. What is the God light like? You said it's the Father light is light, and the other light is black. And what is the third light? You know, the light of the divine. You said something like this. What is this?
It was like a radiance.
A radiance.
It didn't have a color. It was
Ah.
just this powerful radiance. Adults describe this light as so powerful that it's more powerful than 10,000 suns. Instantly you're fried, but there's no pain. This light is totally powerful.
Do you know the book of the death from Tibet? They describe as well, you know, the different stages to leave the body. So it's very quite accurate. This
Right.
The book of the death from Tibetan.
Yes, I'm very familiar with it.
Cool.
I just stick with people, you know, and their testimony.
Okay.
Okay, the next question, please. Pierre
Thank you.
Bregard, unmute yourself. Pierre,
Hello, Mrs. PMH Atwater. I've heard you in Montreal. I love you. You're great. You're fantastic. You're more young than anyone I know on earth.
very enthusiastic.
Incredible. My question is, I've heard I heard someone describing a near-death experience, talking about the black energy, the white energy, and the clear energy, and in the NDE experience, and
Good.
described the black energy as the womb of God or womb of the universe. It's like the feminine, if you want, aspect of God, warmth and embracing and non-judgment, and as a womb of God. I love that concept. What do you think about that?
Yes. What we find is that black or dark light is very healing. And in the big book of near-death experiences, there is a story, and the men also drew a picture. He was taken in to the hospital rush case. He couldn't be operated on until in the morning. So he was put in a hospital bed, and this incredible black light came to him and covered him. And in the morning, the problem was gone. He did not require surgery. It healed him totally, that black light. There's something about that black light that uplifts the individual, heals the individual, and seems to be very comforting. Well, it's the mother light. It's the mother that holds us and protects us. Now, take a look at this. Nothing is born without blackness. All seeds come from blackness. All people come from blackness. Everything that is born, everything that comes into the world comes from that blackness or that darkness. All plants, everything. So in the near-death experience, there is that sense of blackness or darkness that is very healing and brings us forth and heals us. But with children, it also increases intelligence many-fold. What I'm finding with these kids, most of them, from birth to the age of 5, by the time they're 5, they're able to figure things out that are just incredible. Many of them have synesthesia. In fact, there's a lot of kids anymore throughout the world, especially in the United States, Europe, and Canada, who are being born with synesthesia. Now, that's an elaboration of the limbic system, where you have multiple
Okay.
well, let me give you an example. I was born with synesthesia. No, I didn't have a near-death experience. I was just born that way. In the first grade, I was the only kid in school who could smell color, see music, and hear numbers. Well, naturally, I was punished. I was punished for that because the teacher and the principal and my mother thought I was lying. I was not lying. I was a truth teller. And by the end of the first grade, by golly, I decided that all adults are stupid, and I never wanted to be an adult when I grew up. Yeah. I did my first double-blind study with a control group at the age of 5. I've been tearing apart the world ever since. So it's no wonder I'm a researcher now. But it changes your it changes the way you look at things and feel things and respond to things. And it changes the limbic system in the brain.
Thank you very much.
And the
Beautiful.
next question, Linda, unmute yourself. Linda. Okay, Linda is not there. Mira, you raised your hand. You have a question?
Yeah, I would like to know, in your research, was the culture playing some role?
It plays a role in the way the person describes what they went through.
Okay.
Especially if they're a fundamentalist Christian or if they're a Buddhist, on and on and on.
Mhm.
It will change the way they describe what they went through. It does not change what they went through. It changes the way they describe it. And the way I got around this is I would ask the experiencer to draw what they saw. And I'll tell you, a cowboy in Wyoming will draw their experience almost the same as someone in Bangkok, Thailand.
Okay.
But it will differ only in the words they use, not what happened to them.
Word they use, not what happened to them.
Yeah, the language. The language will
language.
change according to their culture, their family, their religion, but it won't change what they went through, what happened to them, and the effect that had on them.
Next question,
Okay,
Jocelyn.
because in my childhood, I heard a story. I heard from somebody that she had to go on lots and lots of ladders, and then she came back. So she didn't talk about the light at the end of the tunnel or something like that. So that's why I'm thinking, is it that some of the things which I know we express in the same way, or all those kinds of things that culture, religion,
yeah.
and
Very
does
few
it play?
very few people
Yeah.
have a tunnel experience.
Okay.
I think it was back in 1982, Gallup poll did a professional survey
Yeah.
of near-death experiencers, and only 9% had a tunnel.
Okay.
So this idea of tunnels,
Yeah.
some people have them, but most people don't. A lot of people are met by animals on the other side.
Okay.
That's true. And
Mhm.
and especially with children, they're met by birds. A lot of
Okay.
birds, a lot of animals,
Mhm.
and loved ones, of course, who've died and gone on.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Next question, Jocelyn. Jocelyn
Yes, thank
Sanyo.
Yes, I'm there. Thank you. I have I would need your help to understand. I mean, I have two questions. Let me put it that way. We could, if say there is a difference between near-death experience and out-of-body experience. The
Yes.
two questions I have is that once I had a unfortunate. I mean, at that time, I said that was unfortunate, but now I think it's sometimes your point of view change with time. But I had a health issue, and some way, somehow, I end up in a hole, and and they bring me to an hospital. But on the way, I saw. I could not say it's not a tunnel, but I saw just light. It was a white light. And it's like anywhere you look, it's like up, down, left, right, and but I was hearing my wife crying, and I was like, I was like in between following the light or staying with my wife. I mean, it was like I think that was the hard part of the moment for me. It was like, it's like choosing, it's like a child where you have like ice cream on that way, and, and I don't know how to say it, but it's the way I'm putting it. That's one experience, but I came back, and that's a quick one. And about 2 months ago, I was on the bed, and I'm standing up to go to the bathroom, and I know I leaving the bed, but from the action of leaving the bed and opening my eyes, and I was just in a black, the darkest. It's like looking black on black, but I could feel myself, but I could not see myself, but I could, and I got scared. And just scared, like don't know where to go, but it's like feeling you everywhere, but you don't see. It's like, I don't know, because now I'm closing my eyes, but it's not that as dark that I was seeing. And then I'm back in the bed, and I wake up like strange, and my wife is asking, what happened? No, everything is fine. I mean, I didn't want to worry.
Yeah.
And I spent the night, I could not go back to sleep because I was afraid, like going back to sleep, I might end up on that. And afterward, I've been trying to make sense of it, and I call that out of body experience. But anyway, that's two. Could you help me on those two experience?
Number one, very often we slip through and into a near-death experience when we're not really near death. When it's very intense, we're speeding along in maybe an ambulance or some other conveyance, and you're very close to death, or this idea that things are very intense. You're either having an out-of-body experience or you're moving into that radiant light. That certainly is a step on the way to a near-death experience. The idea of you're having a near-death experience, you're having one of the initial kind. I identified 4 different kinds in my near-death in my near-death work. So you had one of the initial ones. The initial near-death experience is something like a friendly voice, or loving nothingness, or a quick out-of-body experience. Those are valid near-death experiences. They can, even something that quick can have the after effects. You want to look at after effects, always after effects. That will tell you whether or not you had one, or you were getting close to having one. The idea of different realms, the all blackness, certainly, absolutely. You could have taken a step into the void, and the void it can be a very scary place. It's all black. There's nothing there but black. But in that blackness can come a sense of shimmer, where you're stepping off into creation itself. So through dreams, through fright, through illness, through various shifts in consciousness, we can go through different levels of this incredible universe, world that we live in. And it has many, many levels, many different types of air or no air. One of the things I love in being a near-death experiencer is invariably there is breathing, there is air on the other side. You breathe there, but not like the nose does. This idea of children, they'll say, but not like the nose does. There's air, there's breath, there's this sense of in and out movement, true movement. But there's nothing there. One of the after effects, in fact, can go through periods of time when you're not breathing at all. But yet you're still moving, you're going about your business. Yeah, in my own case, I think it was something like 12 or 13 minutes, 10 to 13 minutes. I was driving through downtown Boise, Idaho. I'm an Idahoan, Western lady. I was driving down through Vista Boulevard, and I wasn't breathing. I was completely alert. Hey, I felt fine. There was no problem. I was completely alert. going through downtown traffic at midday in Boise, Idaho, came down Vista Boulevard, went around that little park in front of the Capitol building, going out State Street, headed for Floating Feather Airport. And it finally occurred to me, well, I really do think my body needs air. So and especially my brain. So I need to do something about this. So I parked my car and I went into a state of meditation. And I was literally blowing air into the billows of my lungs, blowing air in until I could fill them up. And the air then went from all around me into my lungs. And up to my nose, so I could breathe again. Like most people breathe through the nose. You can have all kinds of interesting things that occur. I want you to know that's common. I want you, read my books. Get on my website, www.pmhatwater.com. I have a free monthly newsletter. You can, get in my website, go over to newsletters, sign up. There's an archive, so you can read it over and just decide whether or not you want to.
Madam Atwater,
Whether or not you want to take it.
Yeah, we'd like to have a break.
Thank
Tina,
you. Thank you very much.
Tina, keep your questions to the end. You will be the first to ask the question. So we are running a little late. So what I would like to do is just to energize, before we take break, we will do some exercise, a small exercise. So W, raise your hands like W, Y, L, T. Take your fingers, rotate them fast, change the direction. Make the fist open and close fast. Thumb inside, same thing. Put the fist together, rotate them. Fingers on the shoulder, rotate the hands. The direction. Good. We'll do some stretching. Good. And we take 10 deep breaths. Deep breathe in, deep breathe out. Good. So we'll take 4 minutes break. And I really appreciate the enthusiasm of Dr. Atwater. So let us give her a big hand. And we all come back in 4 minutes.
I'll talk more about myself then.
You.
How do I? Yeah. Yeah, okay.
How do I blink that out?
It went okay?
Yeah. There.
She just talks. You're not in the mute. Okay, so we are back. Madam Atwater. Hello, everyone.
Hi, I'm here.
There, your video is not on, but
We there.
Madam Atwater. So go ahead and tell us how we can develop our consciousness by near-death experiences. No, last. Tina?
Oh, I can.
Madam Atwater, go ahead.
it just makes living so much more peaceful and relaxing, knowing the final end is beautiful and welcoming. I'm ready for the journey, and I can sit back and relax and enjoy the journey in my body. And when it's time to release the body, I'm ready for the next journey. So it gives you that sense of calm and to live not in fear, but the present moment.
Okay, what? I think we are still waiting for Madame Atwater.
Oh, I'm working.
You are there? Hello?
I'm almost there.
Almost there.
Almost there. Not quite. Not quite.
Still we are waiting for Madame Atwater. Is anybody else has any comment or sharing?
Dinesh, there are questions in the chat. Can she answer to the questions in the chat, please?
No, we will keep it to the end.
Okay.
Uh,
I think we are still waiting for Dr. Atwater.
I'll be there in a minute.
Okay. Anybody else has to share anything else? Their near-death experience?
Linda has a very interesting question.
I'm back. Woohoo!
Okay. So tell us, Madame Atwater, how can we raise our consciousness by near-death experiences?
Well, I do it through prayer. Prayer and meditation and journeys outside, out with the plants and the, and the trees, and I just do it within my own home, just touching the wall and doing dishes. I mean, I love to do dishes because I like to play with the bubbles in the sink. There's no way I'll have a dishwasher. Never, never. I love that water and the bubbles and to play with the dishes in the sink. I mean, hey, that's fun. So we're always changing their consciousness. Right now, before we go any further, I want to apologize to everybody for my speech. Once in a while, I get so excited that I get kind of tongue-tied, and the words just don't come out. So I apologize to everybody for that. But first of all, I want to say that I found 4 different types of near-death experiences. The first one I call the initial near-death experience. It's something like a friendly voice, or the dark nothingness, or a quick out-of-body trip. There's something very brief about that initial experience. You can still have all of the after effects, but you have something very brief. There is the hellish or uncomfortable near-death experience. Yes, we have these. In my research base, 1 out of 7 had the more negative or distressful or hell-like experience. There's that very positive experience, more heavenly experience. In my research base, about 48% of the people had that. certainly not all. There is what I call the transcendent near-death experience. Very seldom do you have a review of your life, the past life review, or see other loved ones in a transcendent experience. The transcendent experience, there's something very very big about that. Very often people are shown all of history from beginning to end, or there's something about that experience where you are told what to do and how to do it. There's something very broad and big about that experience. Again, very seldom do you have a life review. You have their life reviews in the unpleasant or the pleasant experience. That's where you get your life reviews. So, yeah, well, I'm a researcher of near-death states because I had one. I didn't have one, I had three. So I'd like to talk a little bit about myself here. I'm going back to 1977, still living in Boise, Idaho. I was raped. I became pregnant, miscarried, and my death came from that miscarriage. Death number one was January 4, 1977. That was a very brief, fairly brief near-death experience where I left my body and all kinds of things happened. The second one was January 4th, so 2 days later. And that was more involved, got into the void, all kinds of experiences, far more complex, where I met my loved ones who died and got on before me. And met a grandfather I never saw the man before in my life. He came up and introduced himself to me because I didn't know him. And in my third near-death experience, that was a transcendent experience where not only did I leave my body, I left my house, I left planet Earth, went way out into the sky. And I did not want to come back. No way. I did not want to come back to Earth at all, ever. And went into a lip of light. That's what I called it. It's like the sky opened up, and there was this lip, and I went in and through that lip and discovered a world. Yeah, well, how do you describe that? I can't. But in that world, there was a voice. And that voice, how do you describe that voice? It wasn't like an angel. It wasn't like an archangel. It was like the entire universe was speaking to me. And that, I call it the voice like none other. I don't know what else to call it, so I called it the voice like none other. And that voice was very specific. And it said, you are to do the research. Test revelation. one book for each death. The first book was never named. I have no idea what that book was. I kind of suspect it was coming back to life. The very first book I ever wrote, yes, it's still available in a paperback, I think, on Amazon.com, Coming Back to Life. The second book was named. It was called Future Memory. I was shown how to write that book, by the way, by this voice. I was shown every word, every paragraph, every page is part of the math. Yes, math that was used to construct this book on the basis of a labyrinth. In other words, it's not a book, it's a labyrinth. So when you start reading in the book, it's like walking in through a labyrinth. You stay on the path will, like a labyrinth, you'll go this way and that way. Stay on the path and read it through. The purpose of that book is to raise your consciousness up to the next highest level possible for you at that time. So it's a brain, it's literally a brain changer. The third book was also named A Manual for Developing Humans. It literally is a real manual that shows you how to be who you are. It begins with talking and thinking and goes right on through. You know, way back in ancient times, going back a ways, Hu, H-U, Hu was the sound of God. So human was God man, God woman. How many of us are ever taught how to be humans? I mean, you learn reading in school and you learn how to speak, but we're not taught how to be humans. And that book teaches you how to be a human, how to be a co-creator with the creator. Because when you have a near-death experience, most of us who have them, you come back with that sense that you are now a co-creator with the creator. God is, death isn't. You know who you are. You are a soul living in a body. But you are a soul. And the book, A Manual for Developing Humans, helps you to be who you are. Yes, it's available. You can get it. It's full of thought form drawings, which I did. You know, I was a cop's kid. I was raised in a police station, so I used police investigative techniques as my protocol. And the next year, 1978, I left. I sold my home, gave away almost everything I had. My children were made other choices. They were older. They left. I left. I left my life, and you know, zigzagged across the United States and wound up in the state of Virginia. living very near Washington, D.C. And it was in the Washington, D.C. area that I began my research. Fortunately for me, I eventually moved to Roanoke, Virginia, and was hired by a telephone company before the interconnect. That means that I was teaching people how to use the new electronic switchboards. So I was sent by my boss all over. My territory was anything anything east of the Mississippi River. So I was sent all over everywhere. And everywhere I went, there were near-death experiencers. Let me tell you how spooky it was. I mean, it was spooky. I wound up in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I was going to be working a construction job, teaching them how to use these new computerized switching systems. And I was in a taxi cab, and I'm so curious. So I'm asking I'm asking the taxi cab driver, what's the tax base of the country of Minneapolis? What are the major businesses here, the colleges and universities? And I'm going on and on. And the driver became so frustrated. He says, "Ma'am, I'm just here on a college fellowship. I'm from Egypt. Can I tell you about the time I died last year?" So he tells me all about his near-death experience. This kind of thing happened everywhere I went. I finally decided that I must be wearing a sign on my back that says, "Tell me all about your near-death experience." Wherever I was, they were there. And I just, thousands of them, adults, children, everywhere. So my book, Near-Death Experiences, the rest of the story tells you about that. What I went through in just getting the material. So folks, I've been doing this work since 1978. Just me. There's no fellowship, no money. I'm just doing what I was told to do. And I'm still doing it. Now 18 books. I'm now working on my memoir. Can you imagine me writing a memoir? But I am. That will be my 19th book. And of course, with a research base in nearly 5,000 adults and children. I refuse to use the scientific protocol because they ask questions. They have questionnaires. They ask questions of the individual. A good cop never does that. Let's say there's an accident, there's 4 people. A good cop will go up and say, "What did you see?" And if you use the word car, then they can. If you use the word accident, they can. You never use a word in advance of the individual. So I'm a good cop on the beat. I'm the gumshoe of near death. I'm this good cop out doing my work. And I have maintained, usually, I'll say maybe the first 30 years or 25, 30 years of my work, working about an average 15, 16-hour week, every week. And I finally decided, well, I can reduce that now. And I now work about an 8-hour day, 5-6 days a week. What propels me is that voice. Still, the voice like none other. Yes, it fills me. It drives me. It opens this door and says, this is yours. Define it. Prove it. Show the world what's there. Good and bad, doesn't matter. Show the world what's there. And I've been doing that for 44 years. I'm now 84. Yes. And I will continue to do it as long as I live. Well, I'm nearing the end of my research, probably another 3 years maybe. But it's been a wild ride. It's been a goofy ride. It's been scary in the sense of, how do you pay for it? So I've had various jobs. Yes. I've done I've been an astrologer too. I've done that kind of thing. I've done psychic readings. I've done everything I could to keep the work going. Fortunately, I have a wonderful husband who, puts up with this, understands this. I met him in 1980. We met at a Zen meditation meeting. Zen brought us together, literally. We married 6 weeks after we had met. We're still married. Almost 42 years now. I can say he's my angel. He's the he's the one God meant for me. He's there. He feels the same way. He's black, I'm white. Actually, he's brown and I'm speckled. It's just been a wonderful marriage. And being a near-death researcher, being a near-death survivor, has been a great adventure. Yeah, it's been a great adventure. And it still is.
Madam Atwater, we would like to have some questions.
Sure.
Okay, before the Tina's question, my question is, what near-death experiences say to us about life?
A near-death experience shows us how vast life is, how incredibly challenged we are to take the soul that we are and use that life we were given in the best possible way that we can.
Tina Robinson.
I think we moved kind of past the question, but thank you. It's nice to meet you. I have to say I've read some of your books, and you've given me enlightenment with my own life. And it's like, where do you go to make sense of the after effects of near-death experiences? I find it when I was listening to you earlier, and you've gotten back to me by email, so thank you. That's very gracious of you. I'm from Toronto, Canada. Everybody, hi. And I guess it's a never-ending conversation, right? This we can just talk till the end of time, and there's no such thing as time, so it's endless. The thing that I find curious, the more I live after my near-death experiences, so I had two within 24 hours in 2008, and so now I have a healing practice since then. I was intuitive before, empathic, born empathic, and now my abilities have expanded. So living on purpose, and that was the whole purpose of my near-death experiences. But when as time goes by, I just find it really interesting. You were mentioning earlier about the different colors of spaces and places where you actually go. I went to the void, but within the void, my mom came, and she had passed before my near-death experiences. And then I found myself having a conversation with a voice that I knew that owned me, that I belonged to, and it was a loving feeling, and that everybody shares. But I wonder what you're thinking, or what your research has shown with regards of the space that you go, like the void versus the white light versus does that correlate pardon me, with any of the after effects? Like what type of after effects, depending on what type of experience you have?
I fully believe you go where you need to go.
Right.
For your own benefit, for your own learning, for your own curiosity. You go where you need to go. Because it varies depending on the individual and children. You go where you need to go. So that adventure that we call life continues whether we're dead or alive. What I call life, what any of us can call life, is existence. It is that sparkle of the soul. Who we are as a soul. We go to wherever it is that will nurture our expansion as a soul. Sometimes that's unpleasant. Sometimes it's challenging. Always it's an adventure.
I wonder why it's been called near-death experience when it's actually a death experience.
Well, some of them didn't die. So anyone who is about to die, has a fear-death experience, that is to say, they thought they were going to die but didn't, but they're scared out of their body, but they didn't really didn't die. There's all kinds of near-death experiences that can occur. You know, in my research base, one woman, the next day, she was toe tagged for the morgue. She was in the morgue and came, you know, awakened in the morgue the next day. George wrote and I was out for 3 days and came back. Of course, much to the shock of the autopsy team, which we were trying to cut him open. He was on the autopsy table. Yeah, and it can be with children. One of my kids, well, there's not a, she's a grown adult now, but one of the, she had her near-death experiences inside her mother's womb as the mother was trying to commit suicide at the very time the child was being born. So the child itself is in the womb, still in the process of being born at the moment the mother's trying to commit suicide. I had, I think it was 3 who, the only reason that these children were being born is because their parents, as Satanists, wanted subjects that could be crucified at Satan's altar. So I had 3 of them. One of them in particular had, I had 6, I think it was 17 near-death experiences by the time she was about 10. Her story is horrific. But she made her way out. She's now in her 50s, married, has children. And has found a way to not only make sense out of life, but to marry and have her own kids and have a wonderful life. Doing her best to help others. And she's forgiven her parents. Incredible story. And this story is in The Forever Angels. I was bawled out, if you will, scolded by a person who was very, very poor. She said, no researcher goes to the poor. And I did. And she saved up her pennies and was able to write together a memoir, if you will, or certainly lots of pages, pay for the paper, the huge envelope, and the postage to mail it to me. And when I got her near-death experience, I cried. Because this woman, what she had to go through to pay for that postage and that paper was just, you know, grabbed my heart. All kinds of people that I've been blessed to meet and be with and talk to and examine. And all I can say is, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for that assignment I was given in 1978 that said, test revelation. That's your job. Test revelation. And I've done my job. And I'm still doing my job.
Atwater, can the near-death experience be induced?
No. There have been a number of people who've tried, and it didn't work. And I don't think it ever will work.
Why do only some people have, not others?
What happens to you in life is in accord with what needs to happen to you in life.
Where is the free will?
I've had 2 mothers and 5 fathers. I didn't plan that. But it was good. It took me through a lot of hell, but it was good. It was good in how it enabled me to grow up in very different ways. I didn't grow up like the normal person would. And I'm glad. And I say, thank you, God.
We are running over time, but Madam Atwater, are you willing to stay another few minutes, 10 minutes? We can take more questions.
A couple more minutes.
Okay, so
My husband isn't here yet. This is the time when we would normally be in church. We go to a metaphysical church. It's called Unity. We're both mystics. So my husband went to church. I didn't. This was a Christmas program. I'm having my Christmas with you. You are my Christmas program.
Thanks a lot. So we would like to have some more questions. Please raise your hand. I'm not looking at the chat. Just raise your hand. Yeah, Mark Briggs, go ahead.
I remember quite a while ago, maybe 20 years, reading Kenneth Ring talking about the connection of the high number of people who have both near-death experiences and experiences one-on-one with UFOs.
Yes, aliens. Yes.
Inhabitants.
Yes. I'm very aware of his work. He's my mentor, by the way. He and I are colleagues. And what he found with near-death experiences and alien abductions was the after effects And invariably, those that had alien abductions or something similar to that, over time, had real difficulty with that, and it had a negative effect on their lives, where over time, near-death experiencers' lives got better and better and better. And it came to be a blessing. And those who had the alien abduction experience, that became more frightful, difficult to handle over time. So the difference was the after effects.
Thank you.
Other questions, please raise your hand. You have a chance.
Well, I wore you all out.
If there are no further questions.
Dinesh, there are questions in the chat.
Okay, Jocelyn, please keep your question short. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry. I think my question will not be too short. First, before the question, it's quite some experience, but I would like to share one before I ask the question.
But please keep it short.
I used to do installation. Yes, I'm trying. I used to do installation, and one day I had an installation in Best Buy in Canada, some close to Ottawa. And I used to do the wall, the radio wall for Best Buy. And I stayed late. I think it was, I arrived like 9 in the morning and I finished was like 10 p.m. And when I was about to leave, it was just me and 2 people closing the shop. And then I realized there was a snowstorm that day. I didn't even realize that. And the snow was very high. And they left and I get to my car and the car didn't start. And I was like in the middle of just snow. So I keep trying and nothing happened. And I was like, I broke down because now just to take a cab, I have to get off the parking, walk in that snow, and I didn't have snow boot. And I decided to just crash in the car. When I say crash, I put my head on the wheel and I stay there. And after I find like no hope, and I say, Jesus, help me. And I just turn the key and boom, the car started. I said, really? Okay. And then I drove from Canada. I'm living in Longueuil, and I get to Longueuil and I park the car and I say, you know what? And I left the car running and I went to sleep, and I wake up in the morning, I take the car to the shop so they can get it fixed. And it's what I explained that because that wasn't the first time, the last time that happened. That was the first time in my memory that happened. But I realized that whether it's Buddha, Jesus, Allah, whatever your point of view is, but I think what I felt that day is like I established a connection somewhere in me that we all have. But we just don't know how to, we just don't know how. And it's as funny that can be, it's like when you're really desperate, and then you find that key, whatever it is the connection. And that happened to me different time. And I was in a class, I'm learning to pilot plane, and something similar happened. And I was like, just this one, I don't even need to say that story. It was so funny.
Jocelyn,
yes.
This is what is raising the consciousness. When you raise your consciousness, you can establish that connection.
And so now the question is, I'm convinced we all have it. It's just that with the way we've been raised, the way we've been taught, what we've been learning in life, we went on a different path and we don't know how to talk to ourselves, because it's like we are inside somewhere, and that we, the real us, is a very powerful being, but we just not know how to talk to us.
There's a
I mean,
higher
sorry to
power.
put it that way, but
A higher power.
it is,
Get the manual.
and so
The manual. A manual for
yeah,
developing humans. Get the
I need that manual urgently.
Yeah.
Urgently.
a manual for developing humans. Yep.
Oh, okay. So that was the question. I think I have the answer. I will get that manual and start learning. Thank you.
Dr. Atwater, there is a question. How do the NDE experiences view COVID deaths? Do you have any data or any cases?
I'm not sure I understand what
The
you.
COVID. How do the NDE experiencers view COVID deaths?
Oh, I have not researched that, but I can say for those I know, they're very much at peace with it. It's not an issue. Most of them I know have got their vaccination, have got their vaccinations. Oh, by the way, get organic pine oil. You can get it from Amazon.com, anywhere, organic pine oil. Just put it on your wrist, few drops, rub it around both wrists, and it helps to balance your energy. I don't know that that's going to prevent COVID, but I do know that people who use it, organic pine oil, feel very balanced and at ease. Anybody else? Oh, by the way, thank you.
It has a question.
We are coming to the end. We would like to
Did
thank.
you ask all the questions in the chat?
I have no way of accessing the chat.
I'm looking at it, but
Vinesh, can you ask?
yeah. Would you like to comment on the pineal gland production of DMT in the pineal gland?
As near as I can tell from the research that has been done on DMT, it seems to mimic the near-death experience, except that it does not have the after effects. It does not have the power of a real near-death experience. Comes close, but it doesn't fill the bill. Nope, I do not recommend DMT for near-death experiences. It does seem to help a lot of people who are dying to make peace with that, to make peace with their coming death. It's useful, but no, it's not like a real full near-death experience at all.
There is another question here. The people who had negative experiences, did they know the reason why? The people who
we have no reason why some people have a hellish and some people have a heavenly. we can say that the after effects clearly show that those who have an initial or a pleasant or a transcendent experience do have after effects that that help and build and tend to their health afterward, their attitude afterward. It's just incredibly high. Those who have an unpleasant or hellish experience often leads to a lot of questioning, maybe a negative experience or an unpleasant experience afterward that can go on for many years. However, I want to add here that even though their life experience can seem difficult, if they really get into it and come to understand why, it can lead to real positive experiences. We have some Nancy Bush had an unpleasant near-death experience that bothered her whole life. And she was able finally to find a way to understand that was very positive. And she's written several books. Again, her name is Nancy Bush. And if you get her books, they're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful, wonderful. So I highly recommend that. But those people who have negative experiences and do nothing with it tend to have problems afterward.
Desta Keith has raised her hand since long.
Yeah, Desta, unmute yourself.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Desta Keith, and I had the pleasure.
Oh, hi, Desta. I know her. Hi, Desta.
I love you so much. My house is a mess, but that's okay. I have a surprise for you, Dr. Atwater.
What?
I want you to go on my website, hertvshow.com, and my team yesterday after our interview, they have the commercial on my website now for Forever Angels. You should see it. You should see it.
Wonderful.
It's beautiful. It's on it's the front headline on it.
Desta, what is your website?
It's it's www.hertvshow.com. HER, H is in hotel, E is in echo, R is in red, T is in Tom, V is in Victor, and then show, S is in H.
That's okay.
Okay. Yes. I've interviewed Dr. Atwater many times, but yesterday we did a great interview and it went live on Twitter.
Did it actually go through?
Yeah, the second half did.
Oh, the second half.
And
good.
My boss kept like waving his hand at me during the first one because he's like, wait, I've got the commercial for Dr. Atwater and it's on my website now. And it's so beautiful. It just pays respect to your book, Forever Angels.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
A lot of people have asked your books, and your books are on the website, and the website is in my yeah.
www.pmhatwater.com.
Yeah, so you can go and look for the books there.
Sure.
So we are coming to the end.
Yes.
We
Yes.
would like to thank
My
Dr.
body
Atwater
says it's time to go.
for wonderful practical talk. I also like to thank all the participants who joined us. And I wish everybody could have as much enthusiasm as you have. We really appreciate. And our next event will occur on January 30th. And the title will be Connecting with the Universe and Developing Consciousness. Connecting with the Universe and Developing Consciousness.
And who is the guest speaker?
There's a IANDS sign. What does that say? Hawaiian IANDS? Yes, great. See y'all.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
we'd like to thank again.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Good. Let us give a
I
big
love
hand.
y'all. Bye-bye.
Thanks
Goodbye.
everybody who attended.